A multiple truck collision near Kara Bridge claimed several lives, including that of a police officer, leaving many others critically injured. Initial reports actually suggested that a brake failure and poor visibility might have caused the crash, which involved several heavy-duty vehicles and smaller cars, but the scene was quite chaotic. The emergency responders were, racing to rescue survivors and, clear the wreckage on Nigeria's busiest, or one of Nigeria's busiest highway. Of course, our lead correspondent, Ibadan Akede, who covered the story for News Central, is on standby to give us an update on this. But first, here is his field report.
Yet another tragic accident on the Kara Bridge along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and sadly this time the fatalities were too graphic to show on air. When News Central's crew arrived, at least 4 bodies had been recovered from the scene, one of them a police inspector. Eyewitnesses say 4 trucks and a towing vehicle were involved in this crash. One of the trucks reportedly suffered a brake failure and rammed into another, sparking a fire that consumed both occupants of the vehicle. Another trailer was forced to the edge of the bridge, its head disconnected and plunging into the water below. Witnesses believe the driver and passenger may have been trapped underwater. At the time of filing this report, a combined effort of the police, FRSC and LASMA had cleared part of the road, allowing traffic to begin moving slowly again. The Lagos State Commissioner of Police, CP Moshood Jimoh, has since warned operators of heavy-duty vehicles to ensure their trucks are in good working condition before getting on the road. And as thoughts and prayers go out to the families and friends of the deceased from today's accident, commuters and users of this bridge are asking for 2 things. One, that traffic be properly controlled on this bridge, particularly as we get towards the end of the year. And secondly, that the bridge be properly maintained, especially because of the accidents that this particular bridge has witnessed throughout this year. In Lagos for News Central, Bernard Akede.
And thanks to Bernard Akede for that report. Now, he's going to be joining us live on the show this morning. Bernard joins us virtually. Bernard, good morning to you.
Good morning. I was about to say Mazino, sorry. Good morning, Chiweze. I believe that's what he said. His name is pronounced as. Good morning, Chiweze, and good morning, Judith.
Yeah, I had to do that. Bernard, good morning to you. Very gory, tragic incident on Kara Bridge. And just the fatalities, and just talking about the fate of those drivers and even the security personnel who was doing his job is just heart-wrenching. But I would also like to get first-hand experience from you as well. What were the parts that didn't make it into that report?
I honestly, I don't even know how to explain. Look, we tried as much as possible to ensure that what we put on air concerning that report was something that could actually be put on air. It wasn't just tragic, it was grim. There were the truck that apparently suffered brake failure ran into another truck and immediately burst into flames, and the occupants were burnt instantly. I saw the images, I saw the videos of bodies that were brought out of that burnt truck as they were being put into body bags. They were completely burnt, and there was another person who was killed instantly on the road. And it was grim, like I said. You could see blood all over that particular bridge at that spot there, with human tissue, pulling out of this person's body. And then there was a police officer who was equally killed. And that's making at least 4 or 5 people that could be confirmed dead from that particular accident. And let's also remember, I did mention that truck you saw with the head disconnected, the head fell into the water, and you could see just the tire of the truck sticking out. That was the only part that was visible to the human eye. That's the truck right there. There was reason to believe that the driver and the motorboy, at least 2 people, were still stuck inside that truck, that had its head inside the water and was stuck there. For at least an hour, we were there trying to make sense of it all and trying to film the whole accident scene. The security operatives who were there and rescue agencies were trying to get a crane to pull out the trailer head from the water. And for at least 1 hour, that crane didn't come. Of course, partially because of the traffic that was caused by that accident. And so it was just a horrific scene. Again, look, I'm not one to be superstitious, but there are those who believe that because of the kind of accidents that had occurred on this Kara bridge, and of course on the Otedola bridge, not far from this one too, people have reason to believe that there may be something superstitious going on that bridge. I strongly just believe that human error, more often than not, causes most of these accidents that could really be avoidable. But to put in your words again, it was a really disastrous accident on that morning.
Bernard, tell us about what we can confirm at this point as regards the number of casualties.
In total, what we can still confirm for now is at least 6 persons would have passed away or had passed away from that accident. The numbers may have increased, but we have no record of any more than 6 as of now. And between then and now, that's all the information we have. Those numbers I counted. Now, the reason why I'm saying it may have increased is because we still don't know if there were people in that trailer head that plunged into the water beneath the bridge. The police officer who spoke to me initially upon arriving at the scene was the one who said to me that there's reason to believe that there are people in that trailer head that went into the water under the bridge. But until they pulled out, we wouldn't know. And for like an hour or more than an hour that we were there, there was no way to pull the trailer head out of the water. The commissioner of police was there before us, and he also explained what had happened. He did confirm as well that amongst the dead was a police inspector who many people living in that particular area know too well. But to answer your question again, the most we could confirm was at least 6 people.
At least 6 people. Bernard, I'm looking at the scenes right there on the screen there, and you can see that the borders of the bridge, they're quite low, right? And you look on the other side, it's the same too, it's quite low. And Kara Bridge is notorious for accidents such as this. Same for Otedola Bridge, same for any other bridge, whether it's a third mainland or worse, Ojuelegba Bridge was notorious at the time. Let's talk about the barriers or the borders of those bridges. And look at the infrastructural failures that we've had that can deter accidents, tragic accidents like this from happening again.
Okay, I would, if we have the clip of that bridge again, you'll see that just before you get to the border, there's a small pavement right there before getting to the border. So on a good day, you would not expect that a vehicle would, go on that curb. That pavement is supposed to be some kind of distance between the border of the bridge and the road itself. That's the bridge itself. So I would not want to directly blame infrastructural error here, except if the vehicles are heavy duty like these trucks now, then you'll see the distance between the top of the vehicles and those borders. But for regular sedans or SUVs, that pavement is supposed to act like some kind of protection between the tire of the vehicle and the border of the bridge.
Right.
So again, I mean, of course, there could be other measures put in place now that we're seeing that we're having more accidents than we should along these bridges. So perhaps some kind of reconstruction work could go onto the bridge such that the borders will be raised a bit higher,
right,
to prevent things like these happening. And these are prevention measures. However, I don't think that the bridge is in such a bad condition that it should prevent accidents like this from happening. These are one-offs, but this is one too many, and this one was completely tragic. Again, it was claimed that a brake failure which the truck suffered is what caused it, and that's the clip you can see there. The truck that suffered the brake failure ran into another truck and burst into flames. I think actually we should be looking into proper care of vehicles, particularly heavy-duty trucks. And like the police commissioner did say, operators of heavy-duty trucks need to check their vehicles as regularly as possible, because more often than not, what we hear is brake failure. So I think these are avoidable things. But then again, it will not be out of place to ensure that some of these bridges are maintained, and that whatever has been noticed to have been ways that accidents could have been prevented could actually be put into place, like your suggestion, possibly raising the barriers and the borders of the bridge.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Bernard, when it comes to truck movement in Lagos, we are aware that there's actually a law that they shouldn't move during the daytime. But looking at what you experienced as regards this tragic incident on the Kara Bridge, would you say that there have been any difference if this, do you think this could have been averted if the trucks were moving at night?
Well, you know, the coincidental thing is these trucks actually were moving at night. According to the information we got, this happened at about 4 a.m. And I'll break down the entire story I got from the police officer who I spoke to. I think that was the area commander. They got information of a truck that I think hit someone and was on the run. And then they chased it down and stopped the truck at Kara Bridge at about 4 a.m., between 4 and 5 a.m., before 5 a.m. anyway. And it was that was happening, and they went in a towing van to tow the truck away. And that was when another truck was coming behind. That one had to slow down because of the operation going on there. Now, the fourth truck coming from behind is the one that had, excuse me, that suffered the brake failure and ran into the truck that was slowing down, thus pushing the truck that was being towed and the towing vehicle, and that was what sparked the chain reaction, basically. So it wasn't even about the time, but you're quite right. There has been a ruling that heavy duty trucks carrying containers and stuff like that shouldn't move during the daytime. I think it's supposed to be between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. if I'm not mistaken, but I'll confirm that again. You know, so yes, we do still see trucks move outside of this time barrier that has been given. The problem now is enforcement of this law and these rules. Several times we've seen accidents like these. We've seen containers fall off trucks during the daytime. I mean, you're driving or you're in a commercial vehicle and you see trucks that could be hazardous to other road users. And then you begin to ask the operators or the operatives who keep asking for roadworthiness of vehicles. Just by looking at these trucks, you can tell that they are not roadworthy, some of them, without even asking for their documents. You know, and I think this is where some of these things should start from. But yes, it was this particular accident happened very early in the morning. But again, it is a clarion call and a sound warning, you know, that vehicles like this should not ply our roads during the daytime. I mean, imagine this happened during the busy hours of the day, say anything from 7 a.m. to 12 noon. What we would have been talking about, God forbid, would have been way worse than this.
Or worse during the rush hour period between 5:30 and 7 p.m.
5:30. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Bernard, let's look at the enforcement agencies, whether it's the FRSC or the Lagos State personnel who are in charge of, you know, checking roadworthiness. As we're talking about, you know, these heavy-duty trucks, we have to look at the conditions of the truck as well. Last night, heading home, I didn't see that the truck was parked by the side of the road. I didn't see it. And what's even worse is that it was smoking. So again, my eyesight is zero. It's worse. And so you're driving at night. I literally cannot see. It looked like I was going into a smoke screen and something just said, move to the left. And immediately I move. That's when I realized this thing is stationary. It just stopped moving and is on the phone like, hey, where? I don't need to turn on. Can you imagine? What if so what happens to those who are supposed to be checking them? He didn't have any backlights on. He didn't have any brake lights on. He has no lights whatsoever, even moving at night. Should there be routine checks of these vehicles? Should all these persons, the owners of these heavy-duty trucks, whether public companies, private companies, or business owners, register and always have routine checks with the agencies? What can we do so that we can scrap out on road unworthy vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles on the road completely?
I couldn't agree more with you, Judith. Definitely, this is an issue that has been going on for years. There should be routine checks, one, and then but beyond just routine checks, there should be sanctions. Now, I strongly believe that bad behavior will continue where there are no sanctions. Like they say, where there are no laws, there's no sin. And so we continue to see these vehicles. It happens in other countries, even in Africa. We don't even have to go far. There are countries in Africa where trucks without brake lights, trucks with broken tail lights, trucks without reflector lights, you know, trucks that are smoky, you know, all these kind of trucks are hazards to other road users, not just to themselves, you know, and then regular checks of these trucks, that's one. Two, knowledge of road use by the drivers of these trucks. That's three. For example, the driver knows that when he or she parks their vehicle on the road, their caution sign should be at least 2 meters away from their truck, not just directly behind the truck, you know, so that a car that is speeding doesn't get to see the caution until they're already smack in front of the truck, you know, things like that. And of course, the owners of these vehicles too should be held accountable. More often than not, these trucks are not owned by the persons who are driving them, right? So the owners too should be held accountable, such that if the truck is apprehended for not having the right gear or the right gadget or the right things in place to ensure that it is safe to be on the road, not just the truck that will be impounded, the driver also will be apprehended, and the owners of the truck that's been operated will also be brought to book. I think until we start having consequences for these actions, it will continue to happen. As far back as 8-9 years ago, I've been covering traffic reports across Lagos, and just like you mentioned, Judith, the notorious Ojuelegba Bridge, we've seen containers fall off the bridge several times. We've seen trucks fall off the bridge. We've seen trucks fall down and completely cut the bridge off so that traffic cannot access that bridge. And many other bridges, the Otedola Bridge, we've seen the fire accident that happened there years ago. Several people lost their lives, cars were burnt. And then there's the Kara Bridge on top of the bridge and beneath the bridge as well. So there has to be, measures to punish offenders such that these things are corrected. 1, 2, there has to be routine checks on these trucks, and 3, there has to be the drivers of this truck have to have proper knowledge of driving, of road use, so that they don't just become a threat to themselves, but of course to other road users. Until these things come in place, strongly, I might add, sadly, we may continue to have this kind of accidents that are caused by actions of man.
Also accountability as well, because you see a heavily laden heavy-duty truck speeding. Why are you speeding? And you're struggling for a road with sedan cars. Are you sure, sir?
I think this is why the question of understanding the level of intelligence of these drivers also is very important.
Right.
And perhaps you might have to start to even increase or start to demand more from the kind of drivers you have on the road. Some of these people probably are not quite educated or quite enlightened enough. Some of them are, there's conversations of even if they even have a driver's license. But away from that, Bernard, talk to us about the response of emergency agencies, because you said it that it took almost like an hour before we could get that crane to take out the head of that truck. But of course, there was also a fire incident as well. What was the response of the fire? The firefighters now, they get on time, and even the police. Just take us through the emergency response for this particular incident.
Okay, I think the police did get there on time. Before we got there, the police had arrived. The fire rescue service also arrived on time. But the major issue they had was getting the crane to pull out that trailer head from the water. First of all, the traffic that was caused by this particular accident, I think that traffic, the ripple effect was felt all through the day till nighttime. That traffic prevented them from getting a crane to come to that area. I think, personally, because maybe they didn't have enough locations at different parts of the town where they could have the crane be brought from. The one, I think I overheard somebody mentioning that the one they were looking for was coming from, sadly, the direction of where the traffic was. So to get the crane through that traffic down to that particular incident must have been an issue. And it didn't come for the entire over 1 hour that we were there for. If they had such kind of equipment stationed in different parts of the city, possibly they could have had one coming from another area. And also this brings me to talking about proper traffic management. There are cities across the world where the drivers already know that should there be an incident, should they hear a siren or something, there's enough room that they keep for whatever vehicle is sounding the siren to pass. I think in Germany there's vehicles move to both sides of the road, and then you have to go. They leave the center of the road. There's some other countries where vehicles move to the right, and then there's one lane left on the left. Some it's the left, and then the lane is left open on the right. I think some of these measures should be brought into our own traffic rules if they are not there already. And people should be educated enough to know that when there is an incident or when there's an accident or when you hear a siren, as a matter of fact, that there should be some kind of allowance for passage of this siren. But then again, there have been abuse of sirens in this part of the world. So not to make a meal of, or not to make mockery of the incident, we've seen cases where people just begin to sound their sirens, and it's some young people who are running for a party and they have a vehicle that's making noise just so that they can get through. So but these are things that we have to put in place when it comes to traffic management, when it comes to accidents and incidences on the road, such that should there be need for, responses or for first responders, like you're clearly stating, Chiwete, we'll be able to have them get to the scene as quickly as possible, and possibly lives will be saved.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, there's a lot we need to unpack here, but let's go on a short break, shall we? You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. We are talking about the incident that occurred on Kara Bridge. After the break, we get more details from our lead correspondent, Akede. Don't go anywhere, stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. Before the break, we were on our big report where we have Akede, our lead correspondent here at News Central, who joined us. This is what happens when you don't get enough sleep. Who joined us to give us updates on an incident, an accident that occurred on Kara Bridge, a very tragic one that have led to the death of 6 lives, or drivers of the car, the heavy truck that burst into flames there, as well as a police officer who was at the scene of the crash. Bernard, thanks for being with us. Let's talk about one agency that no one's putting a finger on, and it's a National Orientation Agency. We talked about 3 things here. One of them is overspeeding, the other is routine checks of the vehicle, but most importantly, education. Educating the citizens as well as the drivers, the importance of not misusing the sirens, the importance of making room, especially for emergency ambulances or fire trucks or, cranes or so much, a motorcade of police vehicles. Yesterday I was out on the roads, and the misuse of those vehicles also happens with the agencies, especially with the security agencies. There was a traffic, of course, there's a huge fashion week going on, and there's a motorcycle rode in front of us, and he's hitting everyone's car and asking us to move, make way. I was like, oh, maybe something's going on. Tell me why it's black tinted SUVs with suited men moving. So let's talk about it in terms of the NOA and their responsibility to continue to re-educate or unlearn and relearn and educate the citizenry about the importance of life and the importance of time.
I totally agree with you, Judith. I'll start with the NOA, but then it's not just the NOA. I see that there has been some kind of decadence all across, even our schools. Now, look, I'm not ashamed to say it. I was born in the 80s, right? And right from then, from nursery school through to primary school, particularly, we had. I remember so well that there were commercials on TV and jingles on radio that talk about everything and anything that had to do with human life, basically, and had to do with orientation of the citizenry when it comes to as little as crossing the road, right? There were even songs put together by artists, by musicians, talking about, make you they look well before you cross, look left, look right, look left again. I don't know if people still know that's the standard before crossing the road. There were agencies, the NOA then will have jingles and commercials talking about what time vehicles should ply the road, how fast vehicles should go, talking about what road signs mean, talking about what traffic signs mean, talking about traffic lights. Red means stop, yellow means ready, green means go. But what we get to see these days is from the moment you see yellow, cars are moving already. So what happened to these orientation messages? Basically, you have, there was a commercial by one Nollywood actor back then in the 90s, I think, and he was the one used by the National Orientation Agency to push forth this particular message. And they talked about traffic signs, talked about caution signs, talked about 2 meters away from your vehicle is where you put your caution. Talked about what part of the road to park, talking about how to slow down, how to speed when you see speed limits. And then, in terms of getting your driver's license, do drivers still actually do driving tests? When they fail these tests, are they just handed their driver's license, or are they made to take the test again, not just for testing's sake, not just for the issuance of license sake, but to ensure that they do not constitute nuisance on the roads? So I agree with you, first of all, Judith. We need proper orientation, or as the case may be, we need reorientation by the major agencies. One, the National Orientation Agency. I've begun to see some commercials by the National Orientation Agency. One of them is on election, another one is on using pedestrian bridges and stuff like that. it needs to come out more. We need to improve. We need to increase these orientation messages, and it needs to be out as quickly as possible, because it's clear that people it's like a whole generation gap that has lost the message, lost the orientation of, and it's not just traffic use, it's everything in total, basically. And these are part of things that lead to the decadence we are beginning to see in society.
Right, especially on channels that they're on, because I mean, it's Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Those long form ads are important. I mean, they make money for us, so we can pay the bills. But you need to be on channels where the younger generation, or that generation that missed out on the orientation.
On social media, largely on social media.
Yeah, and also use the influencers. They're already there. Give them the money and use them. Yeah,
that's a good idea, if you ask me. The influencers are there, and trust me, whatever they tell people nowadays, the people are quick to remember that like any other thing they even read elsewhere. But Bernard, when we look at the issues now in terms of things that are causing accidents like this, we're talking drivers fatigue. We're talking about drivers not even being educated to understand road signs and know what to do on the road. We're talking about the fact that the trucks are not even in good conditions. Who should we really be talking to right now to get the message and to make it effective? Because I want to believe that these drivers are working for someone. So I'm thinking, shouldn't we be talking to employers of these drivers as opposed to just blaming drivers and saying things? The employers should be ones to take their time and select the right drivers who we hope they've educated well enough before they set them on the road. And also, this thing, I also hear that there's kind of like a target for this driver.
I was going to say that because,
Exactly, but the target is also given to them by these employers.
Yeah, because capitalism is the name of the game. Bennett.
I agree, it's capitalism. And then, while we were at the accident scene, there was this small conversation that sparked up, like what Chiwete is saying now, about targeting the owners of the owners of these trucks, not just the operators, not just the drivers. And someone whispered beside me and said, "Now big men, I get the trucks. Now ordinary man like me and you don't forget this kind of truck, but who go arrest the big man?" So already there's this notion that these trucks are owned by wealthy. Wealthy people who are people of affluence, basically, who certainly may be above the law or may be too big for the law to completely put their fingers on. And if you come to think about it, don't take my word for it, but go down in history lane, when these trucks are being apprehended, when the drivers are being arrested, how many times do we hear about the owners of the trucks being brought to book? And how many times who do we know are the owners of these trucks? Basically, how many have been arrested and have publicly been brought forward to say, this is the person behind so and so truck that caused so accidents along Otedola Bridge or on Kara Bridge, or the truck that experienced brake failure and caused the chain accident that we saw at the Ojo Elegba Bridge. I think, again, punishment and public punishment, so to say, or as a matter of fact, these people being apprehended, being punished, being arrested, and it being public news may be a deterrent, So definitely, I do agree with you, certainly, that not just the operators of these trucks, but the owners of them. More often than not, the operators are not the owners, almost always not the owners. So the owners also should be arrested. They are not just responsible for the trucks, for the containers, or for whatever the trucks are carrying. They're responsible for the condition of the trucks. More often than not, you wouldn't expect the driver to be the one who would maintain the trucks, who would ensure that the trucks are roadworthy, whose name the roadworthiness papers will be in. It will be in the name of the owners of these trucks, and not just the operators. So yes, I totally agree with you. The operators should be held accountable more often than not when we have incidents like this. Perhaps if that begins to happen, from time to time, we'll have owners of these particular trucks do their due diligence and ensure that their trucks are roadworthy.
Well, thank you so much, Bernard, for having this conversation with us. I mean, it's heartbreaking that the Kara Bridge continues to be a recurring site of tragedy. I mean, yet it highlights, how urgent a reform is needed in Nigeria's transport and road safety systems.